I'm not sure how I want to build this one. It's been a few days in the making anyway, so let's just do it then. Carbon monoxide, isn't it an interesting thing? An oxy, just going to do it this way, and a carbon. And they're bound together quite strong, so it states on anything. Now, I don't think these things are incredibly strong. I think the structures, yes, they're strong, but every structure has a weakening or a breaking point to be able to separate it. So, I don't know, let's have a look at something. So, do I want to give it, don't I? So making petrol is quite an easy thing, right? Or oil. Or crude oil, if it's what it's known as, is a very interesting and easy process to do so. Go too far, you're going to end up making some diamonds. Don't go far enough, and it's not going to give you the outcome that you are after. And you have to ask the question, is coal better? And what's extracted from coal, usually, is oil, tannin, wood, pressure, sediment. SEDI, wood, mixture, water, among other things. A lot of pressure, which presses coal, which squeezes out most of the tannins. What's found in tannins isn't oil. Some of it semi-thermal plastics. In the process of making diamonds, everyone is obsessed with making diamonds. It's what you want is to understand is it's the stuff that is pushed out, which everyone says oil is the be-all and end-all because of what it makes and what you can run off of it. Now, this is a good process, don't get me wrong. However, it's a bad process if you don't make it into a self-fulfilling prophecy. So to make coal is from the wood. Again, the wood would then, utilizing this structure here, which is the carbon monoxide, which you want carbon dioxide or you want hydrocarbon. Being able to pull this apart using the force of the universe, which would be understanding black hole, or we could say space. Space loves to pull things apart. And I'm pretty sure that this structure won't hold up very much if it is frozen first. Frozen under extreme pressure, so pressure. Once it's reached to a liquid, it is then frozen. Once frozen, it is then put into a decompression chamber. And I think it will pull it apart. Just taking the principle of a comet. Now, to say that there isn't carbon monoxide in the universe would be a very interesting thing under the right conditions. Perhaps there is. How it's made. This is interesting. Now, if you can separate the carbon plus the oxygen under this depressurization, so pressure, it turns into a liquid. From the liquid, you freeze it. From the frozen liquid, you fast depressurize it. It should pull these apart. Now, if this is possible, then it wants to be flooded perhaps with hydrogen and then reintroduced to pressure with the hydrogen. And this should bond to those, and it shouldn't bond back as a carbon structure, carbon monoxide. I think more likely it will be a hydrocarbon. Being able to separate these once they're pulled apart would be the eureka moment in this, which would be taking the carbon one side and the oxy one in one tank, fill this into a tank, nice, you've got oxy, now you've got carbon, and then repressurizing this with hydrogen tank, hydrocarbon, carbon dioxide, being able to put these together to create that, which then goes on to growing more wood. If you are a petroleum company, this would be the place you would want to walk down if you want to remain. If you don't, people are going to change it. That's just the way it is happening. So much as caring about the environment, perhaps you don't. Maybe you care more about the process, which is true. But you need to get better at understanding the end process of this to be able to separate it, which can invest you into space, which is a good place to be, which can expand more wood to be grown on other planets, which you could take the gases, grow faster growing wood. And if you clone it, this would be very acceptable. The interesting thing with clones, they get stronger and faster the more plants begin to clone. If you took some wood and you cloned it, utilized the clone so that one tree in essence, and it would be pine, by the way. Pine is what made coal, not these new trees. These new trees will make something, I'm sure, but not what you're after. Plus the oil equals tannin. If you lose pine, you're going to lose a lot of stuff. You need to hold on to pine. Pine will begin to shut down. If we look at the nature process, I will dig into this at a later date, maybe. Pine, you lose pine, you lose a lot. It's predicted that the environment is going to stabilize to the point where winter is going to be a thing of the past. Just by reading nature, it has made the next species of trees after the last ice age. Nature is long-term prediction, is phenomenal. It is able to predict a lot of stuff. It's also got new information, which I'm stuck on a part where they already knew this information, but if they did, they would have utilized it. But they didn't. Therefore, it looks like this is new information and they've held on to it. And what's more, in their clones, they're passing the information down. So new information, and it's being passed into the new clones. That is information passing much like we pass information. And therefore, when you look at cloning humans, the information would be easily passed in the same direction. Even if you lose the first one, which has been around 400 years, for argument's sake. It's been around 400 years, but it's made X amount of clones. The newest clone is less than 6 months old. Death. So you say 400 years and 6 months is how old this one is, without living 400 years old and 6 months. Now that's an interesting way of cheating death. Self-fulfilling cycle. Now anyway, its long-term prediction is fascinating. So it's predicting that pine will become a thing of the past. I'm going to do it that way. Pine will go extinct. It's made seasonal plants, not because it's accident. No, it's predicting that there's going to be a change with the star. You want to tap into this if you want to read nature in a correct way. Pine will begin to struggle off, and it will die out. It will no longer be supported. It's passed down information, which then led to the new production of the trees, which are seasonal. Therefore, when times are bad, it brings up more of the land mass, and when times are good, it will hold on to its leaves and then become an evergreen. Evergreen, I would say 2.0. Pines were evergreen, one version, but had to hold on to the leaves. These ones shred their leaves, so therefore it means that if it gets damaged, its regeneration is a lot better, which suits the climate. Therefore, the star is about to change and it's going to change probably the world as we go forward. Anyway, interesting, and therefore it's dropping the leaves, which is trying to rise the landmass. That's no accident. That is very... Plants are incredibly strategic. They are calculated, very calculated. They pass down information, which is interesting. If we could tap into that, and if this was humans, this would be an interesting thing. Anyway, so that gives an opportunity or a doorway to find out what pine likes. And pine can also be saved in this ratio because we can make the environment enviro. Now, if we factor these in and we keep these, which we can grow very fast, and also you can clone pine. It's an interesting way to do it. You keep the main tree growing. You take off its clones and you utilize the clones to get them nice and big. In the result, we want to make some sediment. Luckily for us, there is a lot of sediment. You want to make your own sedi. And you want to combine these together at the end under extreme pressure, probably utilizing the star, and you want to crush it, or Jupiter. Sounds like a big arduous path, but don't worry about that. You'll get there. You begin to crush all of this. This is going to squeeze the juices out. And I think this mixed with the sediment is going to bind in different ways. I think we're going to make an oil. Nice. And is it going to be more purer, or is it going to be less without animal factoring in animals? I think it's done under coldness. When you pressurize things, they get colder under certain gases. So I'd go down that option. It looks like freeze-dried. The coal looks like it's been freeze-dried, not heated. Frozen. Frozen solid, heavy, compressed. Yeah, all of this stuff will change under pressure anyway because the isotopes change. And with this crushing freeze-dried approach, I think oils struggle to freeze in that. They can do. But you then begin to leak the tannins out. Go too far and you'll turn that wood into coal and it will go then diamond. I think carbon. What happens to the oil afterwards, I don't know. Again, it's an extraction process. Squeezed out like a sponge and you're left with the caster, which would be the sponge, and all of the juices that have come out is whatever that sponge has wiped or sat in. Again, trees remind me of very spongy material. When it's wet, it absorbs absolutely everything, by in its nature, just as well. Squeeze all of that out. Out comes your oil mixed with your tannins and everything else from your different types of wood. Also some levels of vitamin in there as well, so that's changing too. And it's on the verge of being alcohol. Not quite. Naturally, it would probably generate an alcohol, a fermenting process with the bacteria, but when you freeze it like that, you miss out the bacteria so it doesn't feast on it, so it goes a different way. The same way if you're trying to make wine and you get one fruit fly in it, you make it into vinegar. That's an interesting thing. Same process here. Without the bacteria, you essentially make something else, technically, or perhaps if you've got something in it. I think this comes from water, shitty water as well. That's interesting. So pine, if I had to predict it, is on its way out. And it knows it. And therefore comes the next species of plants. It's waiting for an equilibrium in the environment. That is very fascinating. Anyway, moving on. With this wood growth, you would have converted and hopefully made oxygen, which means it can go on for combustion. Now, if you can clean the combustion process utilizing this way, you will make the carbon that then goes into the next trees from the clone that is going to be grown. And all you need to do is master the process of this and oil. And we have to understand that burning can also create crop. Whoops, not a G, it's a C. What came first? Nature, of course. Nature come first, then life forms of different shapes, sizes, and races, and wonderful. Cats, races is wonderful as well. Nature comes first. So in space, and anyway, even if you did fail this and made some diamonds, don't worry about that. Give it to something like the lottery or whatever else. They sell a ticket to people. You can get that. And that was a process that just didn't work. And or it goes on, if you do make diamonds, you're making very strong things to drill into planets, even brittly or annihilate certain planets. A diamond, a very big one if you could make it, in understanding that hard contents of mineral, it's not the strongest, but even still, slammed into a planet, I'm pretty sure, will burrow in quite well. And that could be a good strength. Or you give it to casinos and whatever else, and they could, here is a winning diamond. Anyone want to have a go on this? Enough people put in and blah, whoever wins. So it's not all lost in that. And again, you're trying to make your small fortune, but you've got to get the prophecy right. It's nothing without the prophecy. Your way of life is gone, different things like that. Sure, it's not about mining anymore, but it's about maneuvering the company, if you can do, and you can bulk up enough stuff. There can be a self-fulfilling prophecy in this process. And there again, it makes modules that are supporting trees. Pine, you'll hold on to pine, it won't go extinct. At the moment, if it continues on this tread, it knows something. I believe it's reading the star. The star is going to change. If I had to guess it, something's going on with the star. Something's going to happen. And it's going to change very drastically, and it's going to have consequences for a planet. Whether prepared or unprepared, it's coming. So expect it, the pine ratio has changed. Now, it can go either way, sure, because it's still dotted out with a few pine, but yet the dominance of the rest of these evolving chain links in here are too big to ignore. They're way too massive, and it seems to have been stable for the longest period of time before this moment, and then there is a change happen. So therefore, there's a long-term calculation, which then would give me an age of how old nature really is, how many stars it's been around. It knows the best of both worlds on multiple fronts. It mixes multiple gases. You never want it to evolve to deal with carbon monoxide. That, if there's never a reoccurrence of carbon monoxide, once that energy is spent, anything that relied on it goes extinct after that point. Now, what you've got is the problem with the extinction ratio, that if anything starts looking at this and evolves to use it as a fuel, as an energy source, once that's gone, you will lose what depended on that as a, for us, our food source is food, and we eat things, and if we see that, we can visibly see it. With nature, it seems to be a little bit more invisible. They take care of the gases that we can't see, but we all rely on. That's an interesting thing. If it all evolves too fast because there's an abundance of carbon monoxide, the problem is if it evolves that way and doesn't leave any remnants behind and can't evolve back, you're screwed. Anything that then relies on that change goes extinct with it. And again, it will be a long process again before anything happens. Anyway, even still, the tree being very sacred, it's amazing that you can work with this and clone it, and therefore you'll be given back. Yes, the tree gets to live incredibly long time. You need to keep this alive and take its clones from it. The clone ratio is fast. It's incredibly fast. So that's one difference with the information that's being passed on. You can always tell a cloned plant which one is the youngest one because of how much more faster it is at making clones. The older one pumps out a few steady at this ratio, and then each one that pumps out is more quicker, and it gets more and more faster at doing it. So, especially if you start off with a clone ratio, and it puts out another clone, and another clone on top of the clone, and it pushes out another clone, and another clone. These ones will begin to clone at a faster ratio. It's all on. It's all on once these start to do it. And this one will maybe do a few, but this one will begin to outshine this one. Therefore, you can tell this is the oldest one. And as a result, it has passed down information in this cloning ability of how to do it and how to do it more better. And more faster than it does. That's engineered cloning. And it's passing down a lot of information. So some of the information, which I don't know if it will actually show it on here. Maybe it will. So there's a type of clones that you get from the worms, plants, and that fish. Can't remember what it's called. Don't know. I will dig into that more. There's a sort of information ratio. So the information and the sharing information, which is the extra information. So usually plants were operating this way. So they were passing information like leaf color, the best way to do photosynthesis, oxygen ratio, carbon ratio, soil, sun, temperature, long-term prediction, male, female, and hermaphrodite. This is the bit that sticks me. And also magnetic. It's also learned some new information. What's the new information? When you put a plant outside, it's going to travel very slowly. It uses a magnetic understanding in the planet's magnetism. It will stay in an area and perhaps move very slowly over generations, naturally. But yet when a human comes, lifts it up, puts it into a pot, we think that that's the end of the story for the plant. No, it's learning you have just moved it. It's now being worked with something is working with it, and now it's traveling, and now it's in a car, now it's experiencing this light, now it's experiencing that light. It's moving very fast for a plant that is not supposed to move. Therefore, it's learning this information. And I wonder how it's being told, the fast movement. What does it mean for it? It's reaching different parts of a rotation, although very subtle for us. Very extreme for a plant that stays usually fixed in an area. It passes on information, which is the new information, the extra information of how to clone. This is the part that puzzles me. Is it knowing and it's passing down this information, or is it remembering it? If it's remembering, that is also very interesting as to why it stopped. Why? And why is this always female? These are all female. Don't know whether you've noticed this, by the way. Mainly the plants that I noticed that clone are female plants. The fish, This particular fish, I believe, is female, and the worm is female. All of these are female. So the female is capable of doing this. Now, the thing is, with the fish, it's a slight evolving. That's massively evolved. I don't know much about the fish. This is new information for me, so I will need to go and look into that a little bit more. But I understand that the fish can accept sperm, and it creates from the type of sperm a way to, it rejects everything else that's not needed, and it takes the sperm, puts it into the egg, and reclones the female. That's an interesting process. Didn't know that happened. Somebody else told me about that. Now, whether that is true or not, I need to do some more research into there. But if it is, it's fascinating. That's an old life form then. That one would be an old life form. The worm, extremely old life form. And plants, incredibly old life form. Now, is it cloning, which is the one, in order to find the right ratio to create a feminine plant, which a male plant, or hermaphrodite? Then I asked the question, why doesn't it start creating male from it if it's female? However, would it know to do that? That's the information that's not been shared. As it woke up to this in this ratio, if it was introduced to a male, what would it do now after this long of being away from being able to reproduce? Will it mirror that to make hermaphrodite plants? And therefore, why will it not create a male or hermaphrodite? And is this because of the genes? Why does it not do that? What's it waiting for? That's another question. His long-term prediction is something. Now, what is it planning? Now, again, if the changes happen where it then starts targeting different males, would it be able to reproduce with a male that it creates? And the answer would be probably no, without deformity, right? So is it easier just to be able to clone itself? In this ratio, it's still achieving life. And it's still flowering, so that's interesting. Remains to be seen. Very happily flowering. So what is it waiting for? That's the big question for me. And yes, the self-replication numbers are expanding. They expand more and more and more and more. So its predictable outcome, cloning speeds, that has increased. Extra movement. The clones get stronger and faster. So again, and even when humans pick it up and move with it, it must understand something is working with it. Now, how does that know that? How does that see that? What does that information look like going forwards? And therefore, to say that a plant is not intelligent is an understatement, because it understands a lot of stuff that you would naturally see. This is all very natural and very common, all of this stuff, passes this sort of stuff on. This extra knowing, extra information, this clearly is thinking process. Although not perceived as thinking as we understand it, it's thinking, it's holding information, and it is passing this information down to its clone. Which there again is like me having a clone at that young age, and I'm able to pass information down. Big difference between something else being in creation of your brain versus you being in control of your brain. That's the engineered part. And it seems to be getting faster with each replica that it has, without diminishment to the growth ratio of the overall bulb itself. It's still expanding under the same ratio as what the other one is expanding at, what I likely see from this expansion. So there's no diminishment in its energy. So some people will have the hesitancy, if humans ever made clones, that it would run out. No, not at all with this. If this is a very new process, which it is, considering the amount of years that it's taken to trigger this response, it also means that it's waiting for something, but what is it waiting for? And that's an interesting thing, really. For a plant that can clone itself, hold on to more leaves, it's generating less waste than it did. So with this being outside, it was producing a lot of waste. It's now producing less waste. It is able to convert the gases more faster. That would be a hesitant thing to do that. Could it end up basically producing too much and feeding off of something without there being a balance, such as in the understanding of plants? sometimes you want to look at those as being able to take your nutrients from you, your waste products from you, and use it as nutrients, and you take its waste and use it as a nutrients, being its leaves, perhaps its fruits, its flowers, and everything else. This is a self-fulfilling prophecy from one to the other. Now, if it can evolve in this aspect, and there is something looking after it, and it shows a level of thinking, and you're around it, breathing it, what else is it studying about the environment? Because as it is around me and I'm being affected by it, okay, so depression, minimal. Happiness, endorphin, cleaner oxygen, I suppose, is a good way to look at that. That is affecting me, and that makes me feel happier. It does so even in the summer, when we see it all open out. To be around all of that is a beautiful thing. Then it all closes away. Very depressing, right? So nature has an impact. Now, is it right to assume that we have the same impact on nature? And that's a fascinating thing as well. And even more so that if we're breathing back and forth and it's exchanging gases from one another, we become an asset to it. Plus, if we're moving it, what could that be? Then we are creating an environment where it doesn't ever need to drop its leaves. It doesn't need to shut down, and it doesn't diminish its growth. In this helping, where nature came first, and it almost seems like nature helped us come out of the water and onto the lands. And it fed us. And it knows, interestingly, it knows that there are bees. It knows what nutrients to give us to help us. And in some aspects, it knows how to kill us as well. I understand that, appreciate that. But it seems to know a human stomach and the nutrients that a human needs, or animal, very, very well. Now, that's an interesting thing. Now, if it can pave the way like this journey for us so far, and we work something out in it, which then helps it to have the power that once it cradled us, it couldn't do any of this stuff. Then we cradle it and protect it, which then takes it out of the environment. And this is their life helps life process. It pulled us out of the ocean. We give something back to it, and it then learns how to clone. It would never have done that wildly. I'm almost sure of it. It would have gone extinct. You can tell when you put this thing outside. So it's relying on you the same way you relied on it to pull you out of the water and feed the food. Everything relies on nature. Everything life here relies on nature. We take it, we give it an environment over it, and we help it out of the wild, like the way it helped us out of the water. And we give this a little bit and it starts mastering cloning. What happens if it is able to put something in that nutrients that we need to then trigger the cloning ratio off in us? Because then in order for it to stay going this way, it's then going to need an asset, which is us, and we are going to need it. And therefore, that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now, who's helping who in this one? Because once you start to move with this, so we look at it again. What has built every single empire on this planet? Nature. You would have never done it without nature. What built all of the religions? Nature. Why? Because of food. Food allowed your numbers to reach in abundance. It allowed you to grow. This is why it would make a great hedge fund. Plus, if it gets protected in the process, look how much it's begun to evolve. How much more time it's had. If you keep it open longer, so, okay, wheat, we have wheat farming here. Let's go over to pendulous sedge, just for a quick second. Pendulous sedge is a fascinating thing. It stays open for quite a lot of the year, not always, but most of the time it's open. It can absorb boggy water, most of the most toxic water to any other life form, and pendulous sedge has a way of filtering this stuff. Now let's put pendulous sedge in an enclosed environment, shall we? It doesn't suffer with ergot, it doesn't need any GMs, it basically looks after itself within the process. Now let's put this inside an enclosed environment. Let's put it near some pits where the pits of water are less than perfectly clean, and it is going to filter that, and it is going to sweat it into this environment, which we can collect the moisture from there with a like squeegee service that pushes it into the sides. And collect this water. What's that like to drink? Is it more purer? That's a question. And even if we protect it during the harshest winters, I'm pretty sure that if pendulous sedge is anything like this particular process here, that if it's open longer, will it produce more of the nutlets on the end? Will it flower more in the year? If this plant is capable of doing it 6 times a year and it's increasing, sometimes it can even be 8. And sometimes it's one time after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. If this was food, I would be pretty much good all the way through winter with it. Now we imagine this with pendulous sedge. That's an all year round crop. What else is it? It's hopefully mixing the gases and it's purifying water. That's just one example of many. It can make a flour, it can make a flatbread. It doesn't suffer with ergot. It lasts an incredibly long time as opposed to wheat. Wheat is good, keep it, yes, absolutely. But also bring this into society. It's very good. It is incredibly tasty. It's got less of the risks. It's low maintenance farming. And if you get it right, these things overgrow anyway. They're huge, they grow massive, and they grow really fast, and they purify a lot of water, which is just as well because some of the water around these areas it grows is quite the stuff. So with it purifying that water, that's a good clean process there. It will leave deposits further afield, don't get me wrong. So it can't always be subject to dirty water. It will need to break down eventually. If not, it will concentrate it in those levels, and I wonder if it will evolve to be able to deal with that. That's a good evolving. Water's always going to get dirty. Reaching its height and its evulsion ratio, it can then stabilize. It's interesting. Nature is often telling a story. It knows something more, and if it helped us out once before, there you are. We understand nitrogen, nitrate, also understanding that process there as well. Zapping it with energy, electric, lightning, whatever it may be. Having it orbit too close to a planet and have it zap it. Who knows? Whatever it may be with the Io's power on Jupiter. Wouldn't mind some of those lightning bolts, old Io. You wouldn't? I would love it if you zapped it in here. Got some gases that need sparkling away. Static. Oh, static engine's very good. Depressurization and pressurization. We often focus on what it's like to pressurize things in order to create a gas purification into something, dirty it up, complicate it, and make it remember. If we did it with the gases and depressurize it, we can go backwards in order to go forwards. Sure, it's going to be a hell of a lot to depressurize something like that, but I'm almost sure it will work. You mean to tell me that we made something? Humans on planet made something that black holes could be like, I don't even know if I can do anything about this carbon, but it's like, watch me work. And therefore, do we need more studying on black holes and find out whether they're in different layers? Because to study that brings in more input into your brain, which then gets the psychology going, and then it will transform the way we live and make self-fulfilling prophecies. Plus, in this process, the tree is looked after. I mean, imagine if this tree here, from a clone of a clone of a clone of a clone, because eventually this one will die down, but you just want to use it to utilize its clones from. Imagine if this particular strand or breed of tree is lasting over 100,000 years, and it's made X amount of, let's say, oxygens into wood, materials, bringing that into wood, fibers, and then you take that fiber, and this tree still stays, compress it, make a coal, perhaps clean it up. Cleaning it at the end is always the way. Cleaning it as you go would be better. It's got to start somewhere. And then it helps us understand a little bit more, which brings stuff together on, okay, one extreme using this is bad. Another extreme of not doing this is also bad. But finding the self-fulfilling prophecy is the golden ticket to life. And I think this is what helps us make a stronger, better species that survives from extinction as opposed to the way of leave it till last minute. And it causes carnage. Look at this. All these companies will fall down again. And then we'll find something else that's equally as shit, and then we've got to play catch up once again of whether this stuff is toxic. Nuclear energy and different things like that, well, I suppose that's one way to go. Self-fulfilling prophecy again. What is it? Aluminium and different things like that. Does that come from the waste product of that? You will build up with this stuff eventually. One or the other. It would be a pain in the ass to change the whole of society. Finding a way to make it work with this process so that we don't get overexposed to these gases. And again, if we can take it to space, think about that. That's a lot of oxygen, a lot of this to go into the burning process again. Once it's all dirtied up, moves into this, then it goes into the growing process. Back around cleaning this. And then it teaches us to get better with gases. Why? Because the next step is sucking off gases off of other planets. Ah, damn, all of these things are bind together so well. Let's have a play on Jupiter for a second, or even Saturn. It's all... what are we going to do? I don't know, there's nothing we can do. Whoa. This has already give you the journey. Wait, wasn't there this process where we did this back on the Earth? Yes. Why don't we try this? Factoring in lightning, very good. It's good at bringing things together, and it's also good at pulling things apart, depending on the medium, if you've got a liquid. Depressurization, get it pressurized to it's in a liquid, hit an energy charge, a light one in there. What happens? Does it separate? Does it not? Does it not work? Does it work? What do you do that in a pressurized chamber? Depressurize it. Does it pull it apart? There is a way. There is always a way, because the universe is doing this repeatedly on a cycle over and over again. If it starts off with hydrogen and you go one way and you can get ions, metals and everything else, then clearly there is a way to go reverse of this process, which is purification. You can purify quite a lot, but just remember, if you're taking a piece of iron, it might seem very small. That's a hell of a lot of gas. Don't be surprised if that piece of iron unpacks into a planet's worth of gas, because you've crushed it. Interesting. Space, not very good at pulling that apart. Maybe one layer into a black hole, still not as good. Maybe 3 layers into the black hole, maybe it's starting to pull that. Is it lowering in temp? Is it getting colder the more it's going in? And a bit like we take liquid nitrogen and we dip in something and bring it out and crush. Look at this, it crushes this, look at that. Okay, assuming a black hole takes that process, and let's factor in the liquid nitrogen, or assuming that it stays liquid in that process, and we depressurize it, what would happen to that once it was frozen and depressurization? Because it seems the most unlikely thing, doesn't it? To be able to have something that gets very cold while it depressurizes. And the more it goes in, it's more colder, and there's more of a pull, and even more of a pull, but it just can't breach. Therefore, the skin of the black hole is incredibly strong then, works in layers in order to stop the black hole from pulling itself apart. And stars are the reverse of that. Interesting, isn't it? You got one doing one, you got one doing another, and where should we be in that as a way of life, as beings? We should be doing the same thing. Why? Because it allows us to exist. Now, if it allows the universe to go on and exist in these cycles, then where do you want to be in that cycle? Oh, I want to be with the star. Or actually, maybe I want to be over here with the black hole. Well, maybe I want to be over it. Shit me, man. Pick the middle. Why? Because if you're in the middle, all of this shit can work around you and you stay the same no matter what side of the fucking cycle it is in. Because mama's fucking got this, or dad has got this, you know? You want to be in the middle. Treat it like fucking wings. Beautiful. When you make it to the middle. In the middle of all of these processes. That is where cloning comes in. Beautiful, isn't it? Eternal life. What do you want to live it as? One balance? Everything else shaping around you? Well, you're not ready for it, are you? Cloning, when you're in the middle, and you get to understand all of these different gases, zap it with lightning, creates nitrate. Nice, wonderful. Plants, do you want this? I fucking do. Wonderful. What are you going to turn that into? Did you want some food? We might as well grow that into my mouth. Oh, that's very good. What am I supposed to do with all of this? Hey, you want it? Yeah, I want it. Okay. It's going to devour some of that. Good. Wonderful. Next one. Oh, I'll have the leftovers of that. It's not as potent. And we use this whole process over and over. That is, we're going to give, you're going to take it, and then you're going to give when you take, and give and take. This whole fucking universe lives on it. Give and take. You want to be in the middle of that giving and taking? Being in a self-fulfilling prophecy? That would be nice. Right in the frickin' middle. Finding balance, always. No matter what is happening. The balance, you always stay in the balance. Because it taught you. And because you can think... Whereas the universe, if it had a brain, which it does, but not one that you would understand, if it had one like yours, shit me, man, it would be selfish as anything, wouldn't it? It would no longer function in this ratio. The constant change from one cycle to another. And in essence, it actually does balance with you and can still make the change. The more is what you learn, isn't it? And when you learn from that, you can either be pulled in one direction, 1 minute, loving and making sun gods and everything else. Fast forward to humans that start to come up, humanoids that start to rise up. When there is nothing but black holes, they become the black hole gods. And they start loving the black hole and get used to it for all of its... Yeah, if we resurrect you at either time, both of you are going to swear one god is better than the other. What about the balance god? No? Oh, okay, just go back into the nothing. Purification always works. This always allows purification on both sides. Gas, this one has spent a lifetime converting it back to a gas. Makes sense if it's depressurizing. This one takes the gas and begins to formulate one way. This one then comes back and re-goes this way. This one goes back to this way, then this way, then this way. Each one is purifying the other. Well, you can live eternity in those two cycles as long as you aren't being drawn to one side to the other. But that requires you to get in control of the balances. By and large, whether you do, whether you don't, well, does it really matter? Not really. But the ones that do, wonderful. Welcome to the middle. How do you do? How do you do? Where do you want to be in this? I prefer to be in the self-fulfilling prophecy. Shit, you got the money to do it. It might take generations or so to get there. But again, you know this process really well. It's a good process. Sometimes it's really bad, depending on how you look at it. So yes, under a unstable environment that's out of our control, it is a bad thing. It makes you look. Do you want to keep the crystal, which is the coal, or do you want the stuff that got extracted from it in the pressure, in the freeze-dried pressure? Irony of oil, push out oil in freezing. That's an interesting thing. And utilizing water. It sits above for a bit, doesn't it? Then it sinks down. That's a fascinating thing. I shan't say how I know that, but anyway, extracting resins, that's a fascinating process. And usually once the water is all evaporated and gone, or frozen itself out, that's an interesting thing, then the oil starts to sit down. Oh, it seeps. Fascinating. So do you want to keep the diamond? Or do you want the stuff that was extracted from the diamond? Because in order to make the diamond, something got extracted. What was it? And here's the extraction process. Wouldn't that be interesting? I like a diamond, sure, but I would like to know what got extracted from it. In a lot of these things, you can keep the pip, extract the juices that come out of it. Once all the pip has gone and crushed down. Anyone want a sort of weird sort of coal? Anyone? I kept the oil, but you can have the coal. It's technically what it's doing when you're crushing pips. You're extracting an oil. An oil that's mixed with other things under other pressures, which changes the ingredient that then might give you the crude oil that everybody is trying to find. And maybe among some other things, and then nail this process, and then it's making lithium. You can make lithium, I'm pretty sure. There's enough on Europa, ain't there? If that is all salt water, gee me. And even still, there's enough methane, ethane, what else is there? Hydrogen, carbon. There's enough to make water. And there's enough to make all sorts of salt water. And in making salt water, I'm surprised you don't go and make some lithium in the same way. Figure it out. Once you've figured it and you've got the process, ship me, how much do you want? And then it would be great if you could take that lithium backwards into a gas and go forwards and mix it completely up, because then you've purified it. That's purification, back and forth, back and forth. It's like breathing. It's an interesting thing, but when you get the ratios right of the light and the darkness, the pressurization versus the depressurization, that is when you start to become really intelligent life forms together. And then this goes on for nature. Good. It's also good for crops. Expansion, lovely. Resources start coming in, even better. It's a hell of a process, don't get me wrong. Difficult, but I mean, if a few of you got together with a few of your hundreds of thousands and billions and whatever it is and stuck it into a pot somewhere, there's more to experiment with. And there are saboteurs. There are going to be people sabotage you, so you need to be able to check it. You don't really need that much knowledge of how to deal with this stuff. No, you find the people that do have it and they start to make it work. Amazing. And then you've done your bit. And that's the best that anyone can ever ask from you, isn't it? And you never know. With that process, you might actually be able to change things going forward forever. Now that is legacy building. Anyway, gonna leave it there. That was an interesting journey. Whew. Yeah. So it is what it is. it isn't what it isn't. Give it a go. Yeah, this could all be wrong, but if it gets you on the baseline of starting to figure it all out and it leads to the right path, good. Fail as fast as you can, because failure leads to success.